Well, hello there, booktubers. I'm Debs. Welcome back to my channel, Raina Read Stuff. I'm here in the book shack, sort of still light outside, which is nice. Um, it's my weekly reading wrap up because it's Sunday, and that's what I do on a Sunday. Now, I'm not going to do these in order. I've got 7 books for you this week. And I'm going to start with the one that I am most pleased with. I've read it. Yay! I actually finished it on the evening of January the 31st. So it's taken me a month to read it, but I'm so glad I have. I read this as a group read with a load of other great booktubers. Um, and it was really nice to read it with other people to get their views on it. And some people had read it before. For some people, it was their first time. For me, it was my first time. Um, the day I finished it on Facebook, I found in my memories a thing that said, "I've started WarandPeace today. I wonder how long it will take me to finish it." It was from the 1st of February, 13 years ago. So, quite a long time then. Mostly, I've started reading it a couple of times before, and mostly I've given up because I just couldn't get my head around who was who. There are numerous characters, obviously, in this book. It's a big book. There are lots of characters. But the thing about the characters is that they all seem to have a number of different names. So, they tend to have three or four things that they're known by as their names, and then they all have three or four nicknames as well. It just gets very confusing, and they're all princes, or princesses, or countess, or counts. And obviously, I just couldn't get to grips with it last time. This time I have. And although I did spend probably a fair amount of the first volume thinking, who is that, and looking them up again, um, you start to get into it and you start to realise who's who. Now, I loved this, absolutely loved it. And one of the reasons I think I loved it is because the characters, they're all flawed in some way. I mean, there are characters like Helena and Anatole who you sort of love to hate. They're obviously the ones who are meant to be the bad guys. But the other characters, the development of the characters from beginning to end is really impressive. Really impressive. Now, obviously, this takes place in Russia during the Napoleonic Wars. Um, I absolutely loved the descriptions of the high society St. Petersburg and Moscow scenes. They were like little vignettes, and after Tolstoy describes them, I was getting little line drawings in my head. I really wish this had been illustrated, but then it was quite difficult to physically to handle, because it was so big anyway. So if you'd bunged in illustrations in there, it would just have been too much. I'm going to say something that I think is possibly controversial, because everybody seems to love the character Natasha. She drove me insane. Um, she starts off brilliantly as this high spirited girl who knows what she wants and is effervescent and vivacious, and it's great. And then I don't know if you know the intimacies written within this, but she arranges, she falls in love, and she is to be married. But they're not going to get married for a year. And before the year's out, she breaks off that engagement and is caught before she can elope with Anadole, who actually is already married. Um, but then she takes to her bed. And she takes to her bed for so long that I just wanted to drag her out of bed and shake her by the shoulders and say, come on, look, this was your fault. Sort yourself out and just get on with your life. She does, eventually. I mean, it took her a really long time. Um, but at the end of the book, she's married, doesn't seem to be able to function brilliantly without her husband being around, and has a couple of kids. I mean, she's happily married, but the vivacious young girl, I don't know what happened to her because she's not there at the end. But apparently everybody loves Natasha. I mean, there's nothing not to like about her. I just sort of grow a pair. You know, well, probably the wrong thing to say to a woman, but you know what I mean. Um, Other than that, the battles are amazing, and it's almost a book of two halves in that for the first section, the battles are very gentlemanly. It's almost this is the way that civilized Europeans conduct war. And then it really ramps it up a notch, and war is shown in all its hellish, with all its hellish attributes. Um, Tolstoy philosophizes a lot in this, and I think the change between the ways that the war is conducted is channeling the reader into thinking that war is just an abomination, which it is. It's interesting when he does philosophize, it's like he, as Tolstoy, is talking directly to you as the reader. Um, it's a fascinating, fascinating book. I'm really, really glad I read it. I need to read it again, but not now. Um, I think I would get a lot out of a second reading. This edition includes the French because Russian high society was speaking French in those days. Um, it's been translated by Richard Pevere and Larissa Volokhonsky. Um, People I know who have previously read it said this is a good translation, and I certainly enjoyed it. I like the fact that the French remains in there, and with translation, um, because my French isn't up to reading this. But it was brilliant, just brilliant, and I really feel as though I've checked a huge milestone off my reading list. Right, let's move to the two books that I've read for Historithon, or rather the two books I've finished for Historithon. I'd already started this. Professor Alice Roberts, Buried. Um, we're in Q1 of Historathon, which is prehistory to 500 CE. This doesn't all fit inside that. Um, Towards the end of the book, we move on to Vikings and things that are later than 500 CE. I like Professor Alice Roberts. I like her documentaries. This is the first book I've read by her. I'm reading another one in March with Alex from Alex Bridge. We're going to read Ancestors. I find her writing style very accessible. Um, she is a scientist, previously a doctor, then became an archaeologist. I really enjoy her television programs. This is it's easy to read. It's easy to read and it's easy to understand. It's split into chapters that cover a certain burial, and she discusses how they were how these people were buried, and what that could mean. What she doesn't do is come to any conclusions. So she's very good at putting forward all the different views on the individual burials. There's one, for example, where something like 96 child skeletons, and when I say child, I mean baby skeletons, have been found around this Roman building. Um, and there was a number of reasons put forward as to why that should be. It the building possibly could have been somewhere where people went to give birth. It could have been a brothel. It could have been some other sort of medical facility. It could have been that it was a shrine to someone, and people who had babies who died um, might have buried the bodies there. What she doesn't say is what she thinks is the most likely of all of these. Um, I don't know whether that's a good thing or bad thing. I read SPQR by Mary Beard, finished that the week before, and I like the fact that she didn't categorically state something was true, but she did give a line or two about what she thought was the most likely possibility. Now, like, she doesn't, Alice Roberts doesn't do that. It was still good, and I'm still looking forward to reading Ancestors. I also have her book, The Celts. I don't know when I'm going to read that. Second, for Historathon Q1, I read Neil Oliver, Wisdom of the Ancients. This wasn't really what I expected it to be. I like Neil Oliver very much. Again, he's a Scottish archaeologist. Actually, he does documentaries, which I've always found very entertaining. I have read books by him before, and I think he's a good storyteller. I only realised actually that he was also a journalist at one point, which is probably why I like his way of storytelling. This covers all different things. Um, and there is a lot of information about archaeology and archaeological sites. We've got prehistoric footprints. We've got the oldest house in the world. Um, we've got all sorts of things that go up to Tolland Man. Um, there's a lot of him philosophizing in this as well, and there's a lot of him talking about how how we've lost our connection with nature, we've lost our connection with the planet. So it's a combination, I think, of archaeology and the philosophy of ancient wisdom. Um, yeah, he calls it life lessons from the distant past, and he does discuss that quite extensively. So it's not your average archaeology book. Still very good. Now, after I'd finished War and Peace, I wanted something that I could just blast through really quickly. I love Michael Morpurgo. I know I've said that before, and I like children's books. The Fox and the Ghost King. Now, what struck me about this? Reading it, it's a lesson in how to take an idea and turn it into a decent children's book. So, what we have here is we have a family of foxes who live in Leicester, which is the next city south from here in the East Midlands. Um, they live near Leicester City football ground. Leicester City's nickname are the Foxes, and it's quite close to where they dug up the bones of Richard III a few years ago. So, a couple of things happened. Archaeologists dug up Richard III in a car park underneath a parking space which had a big R on top of it. I mean, you couldn't make it up, but it happened. And then Leicester City, who started their Premier football season at 5,000 to 1 to win, won the Premier League. Just unbelievably, they won the Premier League. So, this takes the story of Leicester City's previous losing streak, a family of foxes because Leicester City football team is nicknamed the Foxes, and the discovery of Richard III, and ties it all in into an amazing kid's story, and then details information about Richard III and information about Leicester City Football Club at the end of it. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. That's it for that one. Another light-hearted one, Crap CVs. Crap CVs by Jenny Crompton. This is hilarious. It's excerpts from CVs that are just funny. Really funny. I mean, things like, I've set up my resume to be sung to the theme tune of the Brady Bunch. Well, I saw your job ad in the newspaper and my eyeballs literally popped out. I hate the word literally. Well, I hate bad usage of the word literally. There's a section on hobbies. Goose enthusiast. Making others think there's an earthquake by shaking the desks. This was just a bit of light relief as I worked through the final books in the Read What You Own challenge. It did make me laugh out loud in a couple of places. Two more for you. I reread this. SE Hinton, The Outsiders. She started writing this when she was 15 years old. She finished it when she was 16. It's not a coming of age book. It's a book about family and how you make one if you haven't got your own. It's a book about judging people without knowing all the facts. It's a book that delves into the difficulties of being from the wrong side of the tracks and the difficulties of being on the right side of the tracks, which, although different, are difficulties nonetheless. I love this book. I first read this book many, many years ago. There was a film of it. I don't know when the film came out, but it starred all the Brat Pack as well, all of them. I mean, I don't know if you've seen it, but it had C. Thomas Howes, Ralph Macchio, Emilio Estevez, Patrick Swayze, Tom Cruise, Rob Lowe. I've probably missed people. I know I have missed people, but I can't remember now. But the book's fabulous. The book, so much better than the film. Um, and sad. But I've really enjoyed reading it again. Finally, my play for this month. I was looking at reading some more Chekhov, or maybe George Bernard Shaw, or Oscar Wilde, and then I found this Tennessee Williams' The Glass Menagerie. I've never read a Tennessee Williams play before. I liked this. You have a very small cast of characters. You have a mum, you have her son. Is it Tom? Yes, it's Tom. You've got her daughter who is mildly disabled, in that she had to wear a splint on her leg. But she's also very shy. And you always also have a gentleman caller. And that's it. That's the cast. It's set in the 30s. It's quite a desperate sort of book, really. Tom is a poet who is currently working in a warehouse. He argues with his mum quite a lot, Amanda. Amanda wants nothing more than to see Laura, her daughter, happily married and settled. Tom has to work at the warehouse because he's basically supporting them. And he wants to escape. He wants to have adventures. And it's sad. It's not sad. It's a real study of these people's character. Um, One of the things, Tennessee Williams was obviously quite particular because there is more stage direction in this than any other play I've read. Lots of stage direction, to the extent where he describes how the lighting should be, how the props and the stage set should change, and even how the characters should be portrayed in each scene. It was really good though, and I really enjoyed it. I think I'll try and read some more. I'm quite interested in the way that he tries to manage the production of, or any production of this, in a way that other playwrights that I've read perhaps haven't. I ought to read some different playwrights. I've tended to stick to the same ones. Anyway, that's it from me this week. I've had a really, really good reading week. I'm looking forward to next week as well. I am currently 82 books in to the 100 book Read What You Own challenge. I'm midway through a couple of others, so I'm hoping to finish in 2 weeks' time. That is my aim. Doing quite well so far. What have you been reading? I hope it's been good fun. Um, these were good fun. I felt a real sense of achievement this week, actually. So, yay. Um, that's it for this week. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment. It would be lovely to chat. And I will catch you possibly in the week. Who knows? Thanks for stopping by. Have a wonderful week. Bye for now.